Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a pretty wild thought experiment from our source material. What would actually happen if every single American suddenly received $1 million? I mean, it sounds like an absolute dream come true, right? The ultimate perfect fix for all our financial worries. But as we'll see today, economics has a very funny and sometimes totally brutal way of turning our deepest fantasies entirely upside down. Picture this, pure shock and euphoria sweeping across the entire country. Every man, woman, and child receives exactly $1 million. And we need to be crystal clear about the rules of this experiment. This is not a loan you have to pay back, it's not some government bond that matures in 20 years, and it is definitely not a tax refund. We are talking about real, spendable, no-strings-attached cash deposited instantly into everyone's checking accounts all at exactly the same time. Just imagine the sheer chaos as banking alerts explode on smartphones and every TV screen starts broadcasting this absolutely impossible message. So think about your own life right now. In those first 5 minutes of realizing the money is actually real, what's your very first move? Would you immediately log on and pay off your student loans? Would you call your boss and just quit your job on the spot? Or would you hop online to outbid someone on your absolute dream house? In those opening moments, the entire nation would experience this emotional wave of pure joy unlike anything modern society has ever seen. Which brings us to Section 1, the overnight millionaire fantasy. For the first few hours, it would be a beautiful thing to witness. You'd have this massive emotional release as crushing debts just vanish into thin air. People who've spent their whole adult lives stressing over credit card minimums or living paycheck to paycheck would feel a profound level of relief they've literally never known. But of course, human nature is going to take the steering wheel real quick. Everyone would rush to spend their cash at the exact same time. Think about the logistics of that. You'd have hundreds of millions of people instantly trying to book first-class flights to Hawaii on a Tuesday morning. Luxury car dealerships would be completely emptied out by noon. And the housing market, it would become an absolute battlefield, as everyone tries to upgrade to a 5-bedroom house simultaneously. But here is exactly where the dream hits a massive brick wall called physical reality. You might have a giant number sitting in your bank account, sure, but the actual physical supply of houses, cars, and goods hasn't increased by a single unit. Wood hasn't magically been chopped, houses haven't miraculously built themselves overnight, and cars haven't spontaneously multiplied on the lot. If millions of people are all trying to buy the exact same limited supply of vacation homes or luxury watches, you quickly realize this new money isn't a superpower at all. It's literally just paper chasing a fixed reality. And that massive collision sets up Section 2, the inflation reality check. Here is the absolute crucial thing to grasp. True wealth isn't the digits in your bank app. It's what that number can actually buy in the real world. That is your purchasing power. Money is simply a measuring stick for value. It's not the value itself. Think of it like this. If suddenly everyone in the world magically grew to be 10 feet tall, nobody would actually be considered tall anymore, right? The exact same goes for money. When everyone becomes a millionaire overnight, the value of that million totally collapses under the weight of universal abundance. Currency is only useful when it's actually scarce relative to the goods and services out there. So how does this inflation cycle actually play out? Well, step 1, this universal wealth creates an explosive, historically unprecedented level of consumer demand because everyone wants to buy everything. Step 2, the production of real goods stays completely flat. Printing more money doesn't magically create more real value because that only comes from actual labor, production, and resources. And step 3, sellers naturally hike their prices drastically to match this massive new money supply. I mean, if you know your customer just got $1 million, why on earth would you sell them a car for $30,000? Everyday items, a loaf of bread, a haircut, a plumbing repair, they'd suddenly carry an outrageous luxury price tag. The country wouldn't actually be richer. Life would just become mathematically larger and practically way more expensive. This cascading effect leads us right into Section 3, the Great Labor Shock. Let's be real. If you woke up entirely set for life, are you clocking in for your shift today? Probably not. And that entirely rational mindset would trigger immediate, massive walkouts in the most essential jobs on Earth. We'd quickly be reminded of something very basic and highly uncomfortable. Civilization is a fragile machine that depends on daily grinding work. Without water system technicians managing the pumps, nurses staffing the ERs, truck drivers delivering food, or power plant operators keeping the grid online, society grinds to an absolute halt. The economy doesn't just get more relaxed because everyone's rich, it becomes incredibly strained and downright dangerous. This sudden labor scarcity would cause catastrophic shortages, plunging our quality of life and stretching the entire system to its breaking point. Now, picture the contrast here, because it's absolutely fascinating. Out on the streets, the general public is celebrating their newfound millions. But behind closed doors, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, and Congress would be locked in emergency rooms in cold sweats. They would be in a full-blown panic, trying to figure out how to stabilize a market that is suddenly rich on paper, but literally crumbling in physical practice. You'd have intense emergency meetings trying to figure out if this cash injection triggers an accounting disaster or a literal national security issue. The whole banking sector would be scrambling, desperate to keep the plumbing of the financial system from just exploding.
Which takes us straight into Section 4, the reshaping of inequality.
You might intuitively think that giving everyone $1 million makes society perfectly equal, but our source material shows how quickly that equality would completely fracture. Human behavior dictates outcomes. Within just a year of the $1 million drop, society would likely split into 4 very distinct groups. First up, the asset buyers. These folks act defensively. They immediately secure physical land, businesses, and scarce commodities to protect their value against inflation. Second, the freedom seekers. They aren't trying to build empires, they just want to buy back their time, prioritizing family, eliminating debt, and working way less. Then you've got the spenders. This group aggressively burns through cash on luxury status symbols, completely believing the abundance will last forever. And finally, the freezers. These are the people who are totally paralyzed, unaccustomed to wealth, terrified of making a mistake, and ultimately doing nothing while inflation just eats their cash. Giving everyone equal starting cash absolutely does not mean equal financial destiny. And we have to talk about the dark side of this experiment, too. Whenever huge populations suddenly get money, the predators show up fast. Fake financial experts, crypto scams, and total garbage investment schemes would multiply overnight. It just proves a really vital point. Giving people money is definitely not the same thing as teaching them how to manage it. For a lot of people, this windfall wouldn't actually erase their anxiety at all. It would just change what they're anxious about. Instead of stressing about making rent, they'd develop this paralyzing fear of losing what they just gained. We'd instantly have a massive nationwide crisis of financial literacy on our hands. So, where does that leave us? Let's wrap up with Section 5, redefining true wealth. Since the word millionaire would lose literally all of its prestige overnight, everyone is one, society would instantly have to invent entirely new hierarchies. The ultimate status symbol would transition from merely having money to what you actually do with it. Distinctions would now be drawn based on elite networks, strategic investing, long-term land ownership, and private access to things that are genuinely scarce. It's a fascinating realization. The game of human comparison wouldn't end. It would just completely change its scoreboard. Now, don't get me wrong, there would be undeniable positives here. Millions of people would finally be able to afford life-saving healthcare and completely debt-free education. That's a massive, profound social improvement. But from an analytical standpoint, the underlying struggle for advantage wouldn't just disappear. It would just migrate to a much higher, far more exclusive level. If money isn't scarce anymore, a traditional college degree might not guarantee upward mobility the way it used to. People would be pushed to seek out hyper-specialized skills and private opportunities that the average millionaire still can't easily reach. And that brings us to a massive, defining takeaway from the source material. It reminds us that the people who truly win in this thought experiment are the ones who transform a temporary, chaotic windfall into permanent stability and real ownership. Real wealth isn't a pile of cash. It is independence. It's security. It's assets. It's the freedom of time and the ability to choose. It is entirely about having the enduring ability to weather economic shocks and maintain your sovereignty, regardless of what the currency is actually doing. Sure, the fantasy of $1 million magically appearing overnight in your checking account might be physically impossible, but the core challenge it highlights, that is very, very real. How will you manage, protect, and strategically grow the resources that you actually have right now? How do you use your wealth to buy back your time and your freedom without becoming completely trapped by the anxiety of it? That's the real question we're left with today. And honestly, it's a question you can start answering for yourself right now.